Hello, everyone. I'm Gregory Saxton, CTO of CloudFrame. Welcome to our event, Removing the Top 5 COBOL Application to Cloud Transformation Obstacles. I'm glad you're here. There's just a lot of pent-up demand for legacy modernization, mainframe modernization. At CloudFrame, we're hearing from customers and partners alike about different catalysts, spanning cost, skill shortages, time to market, changes is just killing business agility. And we've learned from this. We've learned from customers, what's working for them, what's not working, and partners. And today we'd like to share some of the obstacles and some of the patterns that we're seeing play out and how people are benefiting from that. The challenge, it's not a fun problem to solve in some companies, but the challenge is not necessarily what you think it is. The challenge is to get your stakeholders, your sponsors aligned on understanding the problem. Otherwise, you're building an uninvestable business case. It just doesn't matter. You could build a business case that costs $1, but if I don't think you're solving a problem of mine, why would I spend $1? It could be the coolest solution, but I don't need it, right? You might see the problem as COBOL or mainframe. The question is, what is the problem that your business partners see? When I saw this number, 74%, I was just like, God, like, why are we in IT so bad at this? But then it really got me reflecting and researching, and it's not just an IT issue, right? It's not just that IT people are bad at executing projects and perpetually make bad decisions. There is a leadership bias driven by companies, striving to achieve quarterly earnings to prioritize operational strategy over business strategy. And the problem with that is that decisions are accretive. So you have a 2 or 3 year modernization strategy for your project, and you make a bunch of short-term decisions quarter to quarter to quarter. Well, those short-term decisions add up. And remember that we're definitely going to be talking about time value and time decay in the coming slides. If you're on this call, this slide is obvious to you. That's why you came to hear a different point of view. How do you transform an application or portfolio without business disruption, minimal investment, near-term incremental return on investment, say every 3 months after the first 3 to 6 months? How do you solve that, right? If it were easy, CloudFrame and companies like us wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be taking time out of your day to attend this meeting. Love this slide. Somehow a sports analogy slipped into my presentation. People who know me know I don't really follow organized sports. I've sadly never even seen Michael Jordan play, but I do know who he is. And he's right. Obstacles don't have to stop you. I'm more a student of Zen philosophy and Bruce Lee, who's quoted for saying the obstacle is the path. You can't focus on going around the obstacle. You can't pretend the obstacle isn't there. You've got to solve that problem. So here's what our customers and our partner network that spans your large SIs and cloud providers are talking to us about, right? Cost, risk, project duration, a favorite of mine, right? Functional precision and data accuracy, and this big all or nothing dilemma, right? It's really interesting. So as I started out with, you've got to understand the problem from the perspective of your sponsors and stakeholders. Otherwise, you're just wasting time and you're never going to get funding. When your stakeholders share the same understanding and beliefs about the problem, and that's important, not just understanding, but beliefs, it's easier to converge on a solution. So we're talking about mainframe COBOL, microfocus COBOL, modernization, transformation towards a cloud native system. So if the problem you're solving is something like, don't break anything, make the system cloud native, reduce my costs 50 to 70%, improve time to market, solve the skills shortage. COBOL people are just not graduating from colleges these days. They haven't been for 30 years. Deliver incrementally, right? Then you need to consider automation. Why do I say you need to consider automation? You have a system that for the most part meets your business needs today. You trust it's the business rules that have been embedded into it. Your company has operations teams and customers that depend on interacting with that system the way it behaves. And they trust the calculations. And those calculations are important because of the way data flows. You're not looking to change any of that. In fact, it's really important you don't change it because that'll disrupt your business. So I ask the question, why risk changing them by starting greenfield? You're focusing on solving the wrong problem. Focus on the value drivers and force multipliers. Risk. If there's one thing we've learned over the last almost 2 years is every time you take a breath, you are introducing risk into your life. There's no such thing as a project with no risk. A tool doesn't remove risk. I'm a tool vendor and I'm telling you, my tool alone doesn't remove risk. It requires humans to plan well. It requires conscious decisions. It requires stakeholder alignment. The wrong tool will definitely add a lot of risk. And I know people on this call have personal experience or know somebody in their career with personal experience from using the wrong tool, right? The key here is this isn't about technology exploration, and this is really important. It's not about architecture perfection, right? Avoid the architecture trap.
Greg, that's a term that I think I've heard you use before. If you'll go back to that risk slide just for a second, architecture trap. The cost slide I understood in going through that obstacle, but risk when you get to it. What's the architecture trap? Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. And keep in mind, this is a comment coming from somebody who spent more than the last 20 years earning a living in different architecture roles. But I know the trap, and I would never steer someone down this path. Architecture has a bias to understanding what good looks like from an end state architecture perspective. They have a bias to getting things right from the onset. But operationally, they generally don't have any skin in the game when it comes to executing the project. They don't really have any skin in the game when it comes to project costs and funding, but they are a gate in the process. Well, what I'll tell you is trying to get everything right from the onset is legacy thinking. And it comes from a time when infrastructure was shared and expensive and it was difficult to change. What do I mean by infrastructure? Databases, message queues, application servers, right? Things like CICS, MQ, DB2, all the things you shared, and then eventually the successors, Java app servers and databases stood up in your Windows or Linux environment. And application teams, gosh, companies did not do releases frequently. A mainframe system that changes quickly is often once a quarter. I've heard some companies once a month, right? And it's a heroic effort. It starts at sunrise on Saturday and it ends sometime before people start using the system Monday morning. Sometimes they go better, sometimes they go worse. Now think about everything that's happened largely outside the mainframe with the agile DevOps transformation and these new operating models. The whole purpose of these is to learn and improve the way work gets done, as well as adopt new technologies. One of the key benefits of these, right, is to reduce change frequency and reduce change failure. So here we are going through significant structural operational changes to improve the way work gets done, to improve change frequency. I want to not release once a quarter. I want to be able to release every week or every day. And I want to prevent change failure. I don't want to start at sunrise and then go to bed after midnight. The point is that we are optimizing around enabling change. So why would I want to build so much upfront, front-loaded risk into my project to believe I could get everything right from the onset at a time when I really know the least about the future, right? So that's what I mean
Mm,
about the architecture trap.
okay. Well, I'm glad you went back and explained that a little bit further. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Whew, project duration is a favorite of mine. I've said it before and I'll say it again, a favorite Rocky quote. Time takes out everyone. Every organization is different, kind of. Most plan around annual and quarterly budget cycles. It's better to deliver return on investment in 1 to 2 quarters than wait 12, 18, 36 months. Remember what we started talking about at the beginning? Leaders tend to optimize around operational strategy, not business strategy. You want to be delivering within their optimization sort of vision or horizon. And too often I watch IT people try to sell these projects using the analogy of building a house, right? Well, we're going to start out in month 1 and 2 and get the permits. And in months 3 and 4, we're going to drop the foundation. And then months 5, 6, and 7, we'll frame it, put the windows in, roof it, side it. And then we'll spend the rest of the year, finishing off the inside and getting inspections. Not going to work. What your sponsors want is they want a place to live in 3 months. They want a nicer, bigger place to live 3 months after that. 3 months after that, they want a garage. And 3 months after that, they want the backyard landscaped with a pool. You're in a different business environment now. So if you're planning these long cycles, it's not just an architecture trap. You've got to change your mindset about how you're going to plan and deliver projects, right? Another favorite of mine, equivalency. So let's say that you modernize a system, you use an automated tool, you greenfield it, right? Even you go to a SaaS system, right? How do you prove the transform system does the same thing as the old system? Did you spend a year up front writing business requirements? Did you have business requirements from when the other system was written? And did you have and follow a change control process where you kept those requirements up to date? Because if you don't, my question is, right, how do you get auditors to sign off on this big honking system that you just took off the mainframe that's critical and core to the business? And how do they get comfortable with that? Right. So
You mentioned auditors, Greg. I want to go back to that just for a second. You know, I think one of the risks that we need to maybe talk about is the expansion of the modernization team. What role do auditors play in this?
it's not so much that auditors have a role, it's that most companies running a mainframe are in industries where they are subjected to regulations that require controls around software changes, controls around a lot of things. So, you think about a company that participates in any type of e-commerce or credit card processing, they're subjected to PCI DSS. Any company working in the United States subjected to Sarbanes-Oxley, any company making medical equipment, medical devices, drugs, FDA 21 CFR, something or another. Any company doing work in Europe, right? European GDPR. Regulations are out there, and the very first thing that is expected when you're going to make a change to a system is it starts with a requirement. There's a requirement, there's a process to approve it, there's a process to fund it, there's a process to implement it, test it, promote it through environments to, eventually have somebody who didn't participate in any of those prior activities put it in production. And a lot of those things are being automated through DevOps, but it doesn't actually eliminate the chain of custody responsibilities around requirements to implementation or role responsibilities that I can't simultaneously code something and put it in production. So it's a big issue, and it's
Yeah.
so easy to overlook.
Right. Well, great.
Another one, the tools that I've seen for helping companies get off the mainframe, they're all big bang solutions. And whether you're rewriting the system, you're using a tool, they always start with this hypothesis. Let's take the system off the mainframe. Let's take all of its data with us. Let's convert all that data over to UTF-8 ASCII. Let's deploy it in the new infrastructure, a VM, a cloud compute environment, and let's solve for all the upstream, downstream dependencies with the mainframe, the data transfers, the scheduler coordination. And there's a reason that these projects are called Big Bang, right? If you think about the origin of the universe, not a single living organism survived the Big Bang. I'm just suggesting if you're planning a Big Bang project, you might want to think about the future. So let's talk about CloudFrame Renovate. What is CloudFrame Renovate? It's a tool. It's a piece of software, right? But what you do with Renovate empowers you with a new approach that 100% of our customers are succeeding by using on 100% of their projects. Compare that to the 74% failure rate we started today's presentation with. This is a really cool case study, a card network, right? A card network is a company whose logo is on the plastic in your wallet. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover. One of those is our customer. A critical belly of the beast application. They run it on their mainframe, processes every card swipe. Their merchant banks run it on their mainframes to make sure the data is clean before sending it off to this card network. Merchant banks outside the United States run it on Windows using the same mainframe source code compiled under Micro Focus COBOL. Data gets FTP'd off to the network. First use case was they wanted to get out of their Micro Focus license. Roughly 700 COBOL programs, JCL, mainframe utilities like sort, over 6 million lines of code. They use CloudFrame to fully automate the refactoring in 45 minutes on a laptop with rotational disk. The customer's goal was that they wouldn't have to modify more than 10% of the code changed. CloudFrame's goal was that they wouldn't have to modify a single line, and we would guarantee functional and data equivalency. CloudFrame achieved its goal. They talked to us about their cloud strategy. They want to be off the mainframe. They want to be out of Micro Focus COBOL. They want to be in a cloud neutral Java as a service ecosystem. One of our brilliant engineers figured out that because of the way we built Renovate, we would just have to provide customers the ability to override the code generation template that deals with reading and writing flat files and have them override it to basically process Kafka topics. We gave them that override. They regenerated the source code, configured the topics and partitions, and brought it up. And surprise, when we dropped the file into a new application that sprayed that file across Kafka topics, you saw a real-time event-driven architecture. The dream was alive. And what's cool is Renovate is designed for customers to really be able to use as a do-it-yourself tool. Any customer or systems integrator can learn how to make these changes we're talking about. So if we're generating code and you need to generate it a little differently, or you want to add some additional things with the code we're generating, yeah, we can do that. Simple stuff. Talked about this earlier, right? If your goal is to not disrupt the business, and you're not changing your business rules, you're not changing your calculations, you're not changing the business, the data flows, right? Why risk changing them? Start with the code that works, right? Decades old, proven, 45 minutes later, available as modern Java in a Spring Boot, Spring Batch framework as a service. Java is one of the most widely used programming languages, and Spring and Spring Boot and Spring Batch are widely used frameworks. There are students in high school that could use this. There are college graduates coming out of every college institution that has a comp sci or data science program that know Java, and most of them know Spring, and agile and have worked with a cloud provider and even have some DevOps experience. Let CloudFrame do the heavy lifting around conversion, right? We're going to guarantee the code quality. We're going to guarantee functional and data equivalency. We're even going to generate JUnit test cases based on your representative data. And we're going to come darn close, if not achieve, 90+% code coverage. Think about that. You start with this system, and from the onset, you have the comfort of working in a modern DevOps environment with all the tools that the cool kids have been using for the last 10 years with your legacy system, because now it's part of the cool club. And you can make changes to it and get the benefits of those automated regression tests, giving you the confidence that you didn't break anything, or giving you the feedback before it gets to your customers or your operations users that you broke something. It's better to know in development that you broke something than production. That is something I've also learned.
That's a great lesson learned there, Greg. You talked about that on the case study. You mentioned all the great benefits that they achieved there with quality and the ability to go through the unit testing pieces of it. But I think that they probably experienced a acceleration of getting the project done. I know that the duration that they maybe had in mind was shorter than the project actually took. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was the first modernization project I worked on that actually finished ahead of schedule and under budget. I believe they finished in about 1/4 the time planned. And this is a pattern that we're finding with customers as they go through their analysis of greenfield versus cloud frame, and they add up, all the things they need to do, with the cloud frame code to bring it up to architectural standards or address technical debt. And what we're consistently finding, and this is working with, not just multiple customers, but systems integrators, is we're seeing the overall time and cost be between 1/4 and 1/3 of greenfield. So, if all the other compelling reasons didn't resonate with you, maybe time and money do. So it's I don't want to sound shallow, but money is a motivating force in business,
Yeah.
which brings us to an interesting question, right? What if you could invest dimes to return dollars and self-fund this transformation? What if you reinvested some of those dollars to return 3, 5, 10x? We've talked briefly about CloudFrame Relocate, our tool that's focused on cost savings. You install it in your mainframe environment. You don't make any changes to your COBOL code. You don't make any changes to your data. But CloudFrame effectively transpiles that COBOL application or just programs, say one step in a batch job stream or one CICS transaction. We convert it over to Java, and IBM makes that zip eligible, meaning you can run on a processor that is going to cost you about 10% of what the GPP costs. Or you could use CloudFrame to shift compute out to the cloud. You could host data on the cloud because we emulate vSAN and QSAN file systems, or you could read or write data on the mainframe. You could even call programs, load modules from the Java code we generate. It's all in the box, no additional cost. It's just a cool idea. We're doing this with a couple customers. Might be something you want to have a conversation about. I've mentioned this before, right? Because you can take your data with you. You don't have to change it when you leave the mainframe and go to the cloud. You eliminate the second riskiest execution component of your transformation, changing your data. You don't rewrite your code, you don't change your data. So how does that unfold over time? Step one, transform your code to modern Java services. Don't change your data. Lock in what, 40, 50, 70% cost savings by getting to a cloud compute platform. Step two, come back from the big celebration from all the money you saved, reimagine your data architecture. Think of your microservices strategy. Which microservices will own which entities, which data sets? Which ones need that data? What are your business policies for that eventual consistency architecture, right? How long can a downstream service not have the most recent change to master data? Armed with that information, you know your microservices boundaries, you design an eventual consistency pub sub architecture to push your data around. Ready, set, go. Stand up your new microservices teams. Let them start to do the things that make them want to come to work for you every day. Let them start to change the system. Let them consume cloud native services and start optimizing around it. Let them change the data to UTF-8 ASCII. Let them eliminate the cloud frame license, right? That's how we define success. We've talked about data equivalency. We've talked about generating JUnit test cases, and being able to regression test is as simple as comparing the data out of your old system to the data out of the Java system we generated. You could literally use a compare utility to regression test your brand new cloud frame generated Java system against your old COBOL system. And we guarantee equivalency. If the data is not identical, if the functional results aren't identical, well, then we have a bug and we're going to fix it for you. So as an old friend of mine used to say, the future ain't what it used to be. Rethink your modernization strategy. Make sure your stakeholders are aligned, right? Lock in cost savings early. Align with leadership's behavior to optimize around operational strategy, not business strategy. Avoid the architecture trap. Find me on LinkedIn. I'll talk to you about the architecture trap at length. I'm a former chief architect. Shrink the blast radius of change to microservices, right? When you're making your riskiest changes, do it in a way that will have the minimum disruption. Automate, right? It's the basis of software reliability engineering, right? Put your teams in a position where the changes that they're making from the moment they start working on this system are directionally and consistently aligned with operational and strategic goals, right? We're going to reduce costs. We're going to delight customers. We're going to grow revenue. We're going to improve operational efficiency. Hell, we're going to have fun because the system isn't in a 60-year-old language running on a computer on a platform that is, practically ancient. It's a great platform, but there's better platforms out there. Thank you.